Hello guys, we are here back into Middle-earth and I'm there to present you my work concerning the elves from Mirkwood. For starters, I have to be honest with you, most of the stuff I did there is a bit obsolete in the way that a big chunk of it came from my work 10 years ago, or some pieces have nearly 15 years now, so some stuff doesn't fit me anymore, and some of the stuff I did is not now close to the vision I have now, with all the time I had now to think about it, that would fit correctly this civilization. This costume is one of these examples. There I had an armor which is not fitting anymore, not at all. I tried, no. There was absolutely no chances that I could even fit a bit in it, not at all. And the vest there, the jacket, which is obviously, as you can perhaps recognize, is a bit inspired by what Legolas wore in The Lord of the Rings, the movie by Peter Jackson. And this jacket was at first for me really huge. I felt it like really huge, and now it's barely fitting at the chest. For the costume, the whole idea was to fit the color that would match the Mirkwood forest, and for all the greens and brown I have on me, I think perhaps the shades are a bit light, perhaps, and the cloak is one example. I decided then to go for a darker color, which is more like a pine green. The overall color scheme there is perhaps fitting for a ranger from the Gondorian army, and I think something a bit darker, but not too dark, could be interesting for the Mirkwood Elves. For the different accessories, gloves and boots, we don't have something clear concerning that, but in fact we have something concerning Legolas. When the Fellowship is crossing through Caradhras, we know that Legolas is stepping on the snow while everyone is trying to dig the way through the huge amount of snow they have to go through, and Tolkien precised that Legolas, in opposition to some of the fellow members of this fellowship, have no heavy boots, which could translate into some light shoes, and in the movie what they decided to do is to give Legolas some light shoes with strap on the chin. So instead of having a boot like this, there is a shoe which is a light and thin shoe indeed, and there is some straps made of the same leather around the chin, which is a bit intelligent. Let's just imagine that you have to go through a forest which is dense, which have perhaps thorns, ivy, and a lot of things there. Perhaps it would be handy to have something protecting your chin a bit. So I would defend that position there for the movie. My shoes weren't boots at first. I just here present boots because it's just one of the possibility you can have, and it's not matching, I know, the few description we have for the shoes for the Mirkwood Elves, but when you are in this condition, when you have to go through forest, I know they are elves, but you can still have some boots without being heavy boots. You can still have something close to that. The idea was also to cover as much as possible of the body in order to be able to some way hide in the forest. This is why I have there like a scarf, which is, when matching with the hood or with an helmet, could cover the face. And this is made out of silk, and we have for the cloak wool, and also on the borders there is a brim there, and there is there lace, also lace there on the smallest cloak, or the cloak. And why lace? Simply because I do remember that in the Fellowship of the Ring you have a description for Arwen, which is wearing lace. I know, she's a girl, but when I was like, never mind, why shouldn't be also lace elsewhere? It's not a possibility that you can completely remove, but perhaps it's not fitting for the Mirkwood Elves when I think about it, or perhaps something with another shape, another look. Perhaps there is a way to make it look like something that could belong to elves. Speaking of elves, you can now imagine that I haven't been through the makeup process and everything. I don't want to go on this ground. I don't want to argue about whether there is or not pointy ears in Middle-earth for the elves, or if they have beard. Here I'm there only to present you the equipment, only the equipment they will use for the battle or the skirmish. For the ammo, you see, it's all made out of leather, and this chest piece is actually looking a bit like a spider, which at the time seems like a good idea, but well, now that you think about it, spiders are right into Mirkwood, yes, but they are their enemies, so there is absolutely no good point in choosing this kind of design. And also there is so much studs there. I'm not very convinced by the look of it. No, I'm not satisfied at all, to be honest, once more. Concerning also the other pieces that are on the side, there were pieces that came on the side, and it's looking a bit like a leaf, yes, but strange leaf. You see the details on the thigh parts, the protection there. It's again interpretation, and perhaps there could be some leaves with a strange shape like this in Mirkwood. Why not? So much studs. It's not that discreet in the wood. Again, with time now I have better options concerning armors, and it was made with everything I had in hand at the time, and I didn't have that much option at the time. It was I had scarce resources concerning what I could have as leather, which is not the case right now, and this was both a mix about what I could use and what I had in mind, and what I had in mind was not a great idea. You see, with that spidery look there. This helmet have been inspired, you see, by the Greek helmet, and also a bit by some 15th century babuta. There is some feathers in order to decorate it, to add a bit of an ornament on this. This helmet have been completely painted in order to hide the reflection that could provide steel, in order once again to be discreet in the wood. This is completely made out of steel, and now with the knowledge I have, and with all I think about this civilization, perhaps it's not the best idea. Of course, there will be perhaps protection made out of steel or brass for the head, because even if you have scarce resources concerning metal, your face and your head is a top priority concerning what shall be protected. And we have this option there to have something which could be a mix between leather and steel or brass. Even the brass, when it have some oxide on it, will turn a bit like this color there, which is also matching there the cloak. And perhaps have something like that, the face with something made out of brass or steel, and the other part made out of leather, perhaps a bit of steel also to protect you on the other side, and to balance also the helmet, because you need to have something balanced on your head in order to have no problem carrying it around without it falling on one side. It's really important. This helmet, as I say, combined with a scarf, could help to hide completely your face. With that helmet and the openings there, it's really easy to breathe correctly and really easy to look around without much problems. It's really a good balance between protection and the vision and the breathing. Also, something that I would change is much bigger openings on the sides in order to be able to really hear what's around you, what's happening around you, to know all your colleagues, your friends on the sides behind you are saying, or perhaps asking from you, or if there is something that shall be done. It's really important to be able to understand what's happening around you. So I do believe this helmet is a bit too close, and opening at least the sides would have been a good idea, and perhaps bring something with to balance it, to bring more protection on the neck. That could be a good way to balance it as well. Well, there is possibilities, perhaps something like a scaly looking protection there, which could turn into more like a leaf looking protection. Well, at least we have a good example on Legolas Gorget there in the Hobbit movie, which I think was a good idea for the protection they could have as fighting on a regular basis in the forest. And when you have scarce resources as described for the armor, you understand why I prefer to go for leather. My point is still that Tolkien described this kind of elves as having few resources concerning, once again, the metal. So if you have to protect yourself for the armor, the body will be probably protected by leather, and the face, yes, the face could have some steel indeed. And when you have few resources concerning what could protect your body, concerning all the equipment made out of steel, well, we know in history that there is the shield that will come first. And this kind of shield there, I've been a bit inspired by the Roman ones. See, it's the curve there. At first it was a real mess to carry around. There was in it like straps there, and also a handle which weren't horizontal but were vertical, and that was not a good idea. And with the experience I have now, I changed all that, and I put there the horizontal handle, which make it much more efficient. This kind of shape also make it lighter than the Roman ones, because remove all the squares there, and still provide the same dynamic, you see, without doing anything. It came back right on my shoulder, simply because the point of balance of such a shield is behind the handle. As it's curved, the diagonal there cross right in the middle, but not on the handle, behind the handle, because of the curve. So it remove a bit behind this point of balance, and this simple physics bring a course backward your shield. It's very simple. It's because you have there a 3D object which is trying to reach its point of balance, but its point of balance is somewhere there where there is nothing, but it's behind the handle. So as there is there the point where it can rest, but it's a bit at the front, as the handle is a bit at the front of the point of balance, the rest of the shield is coming back at me, which makes it very handy if you want to bash your opponent, if you want also to just keep him aside of you, there. And also with a helmet on, it's really something that could come in handy in order to protect yourself. You just reach your helmet head and have a very effective protection when you combine both shield and helmet. That be dynamic, hit, protect yourself. This shield have been my first idea, and here the decoration on it are not exactly the best idea I had ever. It's just a black shield, which make it very boring first. No, I don't believe that would be a good idea for the Mirkwood Elves to have such a plain black shield, and even with all the decoration I put on it, it's not looking much different. There is 6 stars, right? Those stars came from I think it was like some banner from a Cinder elf linked to the Mirkwood Elves. But also there is like ivy running all around the shield there, but I do guess it's hard for you to see it because it wasn't a good idea to match a black shield with a paint job in that color, the same color as my cloak. It was not a good idea. Perhaps with the shield, the color of the cloak, and then the paint job perhaps in a brown or lighter green, it would have been better, because it would have been, well, it would just pop up in the shield. No, it's just grinded into the blackness of this shield, which make it very boring. Actually, I'm not satisfied at all by the design I made there. Another kind of shield that I do believe would be perhaps better now is something like a Celt shield, this shape, for example. This is a lighter shield, and this shield would perhaps be more efficient in the woods, and also could be efficient on the battlefield. This is completely flat in the opposite of the other one, giving it a balance right in the handle, so stay kinda flat. See, vertical. Use this shield in another way. Yes, you can use it with the bottom part to try to bash your opponent. It's not as easy as the other one because it goes against the dynamic that the physics give the shield. So when you push forward, this shield will just stay straight in front of you, and this can be useful in order to hide your body, you see. Perhaps hide also where your right hand is, and be able to use this in order to surprise your opponent. Well, basically like I will do when I fight as a Celt. And this would be also lighter, so I think it's a good idea, perhaps a better idea now for the Mirkwood Elves. Both need a strong core, strong shoulder and arm in order to be efficient, and the elves have the time they need in order to be able to train to produce something efficient for the soldiers. They have the time to train, so I don't believe that that would be any problem for them at all. Just a detail concerning this precise shield, it's not a design that I would go for the elves. It's something that I've been inspired by the Arc de Triomphe of the city of Orange in the southeast of France, and this is actually the reproduction of a Celt shield based on this precise representation, both for the decoration there and for the shape. Just remind you of the shape for the elves, just to remind you that, not the decoration there. Perhaps the green is a bit too light there, so something in between. Darker, but not as dark as I did before. The most important of all the weapons will be the spear, simply because it's easy to produce and it's really efficient. This allows you to keep your opponent at bay from large distance. You have a spear there which is about 2 meters and something, 2 meters and 20 I guess. You have there the heavier part at the bottom. The heavier part simply in order to give it a better balance, because if the top is heavier, there is a lot of leverage there, and it's really hard on the wrist and on your arm. So I prefer to have there the smallest end and the heavier there at the top. You see, they have basically the same shape. This shape is looking like a leaf. You guess why? Simply because I wanted to have something a bit once again nature tree related for these elves, and yeah, it's the same but smaller, and the balance is perhaps see, it's not exactly in the middle, it's a bit at the back because of the bottom. So here you can reach there, and I prefer to always have my elbow close to the end, and here it's kind of perfect if you want to use it on your opponent. Of course, having a cloak with this kind of spear, having a end there, could be a mess. Could be a mess if the cloak is not right behind your elbow. And this spear, very light, very simple to use, could be switched like any spears from one side to another, depending on what you want to do, depending on what is in front of you. So this is something coming in handy if you want to have something lighter there in order to be precise, very fast, or if you want to use the heaviest part there in order to throw it up and down to your opponent. I'm not the kind of guy that will say that you have to throw your spear at all, but in case you lost this spear in the battle for any reason, you have to think about some weapons in order to back you up. I do believe that an axe like this would be a good backup weapon, simply because it's light, again, it's very light, and it's something that will be easy to produce as well. I keep in mind that you have scarce resources, but you still want to be efficient and be able to move around in a complicated environment like in a forest, a dense forest like this. So this is thin, you see, perhaps could be made a bit thinner, but the idea is to make it as light as possible in order to be able to carry it easily. Perhaps the handle is a bit short. I do now prefer to have longer handles on my axes. Well, yeah, perhaps 20 centimeter more would have been better, but still. You have here the idea about the shape. It's something that could make you hack through your opponent, as well as with the pointy end there. You can perhaps use this in order to thrust at your opponent's face directly, or thrust anywhere if possible, but of course the face would be the priority. And with this at the bottom, you can perhaps use it in order to hook someone's shields, and perhaps one could hook a shield and a comrade on the side or at the back, and so you can, with this equipment, both the shield and the axe as well as the spear, go all around. See the shape of the shield. This is why you don't have any angles, because if you want to turn around like this without any problem, it's important to have a proper shield and a proper design. This is why I will defend this kind of weapon as well. If you want a sword could have this shape there. This shape is a bit like a gladius, in fact, a Roman gladius. This could be used still as a cutting weapon to slash through your opponent, but also you can directly stab at your opponent and you have a proper design on the blade, when the blade can sustain a lot of stress by going through someone's body, when he can just thrust without any problem of bending your weapon. That could come in handy in that precise case. And as the elves are very good blacksmiths, even if they have scarce resources, I do believe they could make weapons that could be both good at cutting and good at thrusting. This design is a bit fantasy, even if it had been sold as a Celt sword. You see the guard and the pommel in the same design. Yes, it's inspired by Celt design. I must admit, inspired only. And it's not such a great finish. It's a bit rough on the look there. And I do believe that even if the elves have scarce resources for the steel or the brass, they would have produced a much better work than this. Something which a better finish for sure. And this kind of look there, kind of a guard, could be handy if you want to lock someone's blade. Sometimes you have a bit of luck. And this there, the pommel, could be used, well, as any pommel, not to be thrown, but to directly hit someone's opponent. Even if you have to do that, you are in a pretty bad position because you are very near to your opponent. Perhaps some might say also that you can use this to hook someone's shield. Yeah, why not? Why not? But still, keep in mind that it's better to stay away from your opponent and as far as possible. So this has to be seen as a back weapon, not a main weapon. Another kind of blade that you could find on the Mirkwood Elves would be this kind of blade. We named this a long messer, meaning in German long knife, which is exactly matching the descriptions concerning Legolas' weaponry in The Lord of the Rings. Because, if you didn't know, in the book Tolkien described Legolas as having one weapon, a long knife. A long knife, and not the two tiny toothpick he gets in the movie, which is a bit odd. Honestly, the best representation for Legolas is in The Hobbit. I know, most of people prefer The Lord of the Rings for the movie, and I do as well, but concerning Legolas, the best representation is, perhaps even, to be precise, when he fights against the orc in the Long Lake city, when he used the sword that Thorin gets from the troll's cave, and this sword is actually shaped like a long knife, which make it great for the Mirkwood Elves, because Legolas should have had from the very beginning one long knife and fight with all the hate he presents toward his enemy in this fight. It's for me, according to what I read in the books, it's the best representation of that character. And the long knife was really brutal there. I really love that fight for that. And the long knife also had on the handle, it was made out of deer horn or something like that, and this handle there is also made of a deer horn, which is interesting also because in the Hobbit we know that the Mirkwood Elves hunt deers, and if they hunt deer, why wouldn't they use the horns, the antlers? I do believe that it is something that that should have been done since the beginning in the Lord of the Ring, giving Legolas this kind of traits and this kind of weapon. So, if you are an archer, I do believe that the long knife could be a good idea for the Mirkwood Elves. And the advantage for the long knife is that you can have one from 60 centimeter, from 1 meter and 20. It's still a long knife, so you have a large range of possibilities. And the advantage also is that you have only one side that is sharp, which make it easier to produce. Something to think about also. I have to admit that this shape here is not the shape I would give for an elf. No, I would change a bit the designs, and I love actually the blade that have been made for Thorin in The Hobbit and that have been used by Legolas. Perhaps it was a bit of a redemption from Peter Jackson to make Legolas fight at last with a long knife. That was something that should have been done since the beginning. Yeah, I know, walking on stones and bats is another point, but I do agree that it's not a good idea at all. And here are the details of the two blades. Speaking of archers, we have here one of the very first quiver I ever made, and this is actually one of the best thing I did 10 years ago at least, and it's something that I've been inspired, you see, by Legolas quiver in the Fellowship of the Ring. It's at the difference of the one in the Fellowship, it's not made out of wood, and this one is made out of leather, which give less chances to the object to crush and break when you fall, if you fall. And here, with the leather, it's something you can press on, it won't change much, it won't break, it's great that way. And the straps there are locked on the quiver, and there is also straps coming on them in order to go around your chest, and there is 3 straps coming around the chest, exactly like in the movie actually, because this helps to balance the quiver on your back. And if you are it then to tell me it's a bad idea to have a bad quiver, well, I would say that you have to look upon the tapestry of Bayeux and look upon some other representation from Persia and from ancient Greece, where you have back quivers represented quite clearly on some archers. Point is, it have been used. I never say that it was the right way to use a quiver. It's just that it have been used, so perhaps it's more about sometimes you have back quiver and sometimes you don't have some back quiver. It would depend, right? For what I saw as a representation, it would have been used. It's not what's the more common representation, but it have been used. Concerning the bow, I took a short bow, the shortest I could find, it was a Tatar bow. This is a bow which is not even going up to my, well, just at the chest, you see? Just at the chest there. It's quite short, it's compact, and it's really useful then to have something compact when you have to go through the wood once again. So if you can have a short bow, it's perfect. This shape also, I do love this shape there. It's the typical Tatar look for bow, and also I do think it could be matching for those elves. And there you have a bow that is very smooth and very enjoyable when you shoot with it. And also it's something that have to be short in order to contrast when Legolas got his new bow. His new bow is much longer than the one he got at first. It had been described that way in the Fellowship. When he got the new bow from Galadriel, that new bow is longer. So in order to not have to go for 2-meter bow, I do think that giving the Mirkwood Elves some short bow like this will help to balance things up. If you consider that Mirkwoods produce bow that high, perhaps the Lothlorien will produce bow that high, and won't be a problem in the wood to be that high, at shoulder high. So this is what I do propose as bows for these civilizations. This is what I will see as a good option for the arrowheads. Just looking like leaf shape, like the spear I just presented you before. For the arrows, well, I don't think that this kind of classical shape would fit actually. Perhaps some other design that could be efficient but still not that simple in the look. And I would probably go for some knots like this, method of horn on this one there. And in order to carry your bow around, you can perhaps have some sort of a pocket like this. This pocket is not matching the bow I just presented you. It was some sort of pocket that I made for another bow. This was at first something that I think I would have added to the Quiver, but I didn't go through all the process and the editing. But this is something that you can consider as well in their equipment. I hope this video has been interesting for you, and if you want to know more about all the work I already did on Middle-earth, there is other videos on my channel, and there is more that will follow concerning different civilizations. And if you want to keep in touch, it's simple. Just subscribe. See you guys.